So when I finally got the courage to go to the courthouse and actually start the paperwork for, I mean, not even a divorce. I view it as an escape, you know. Um, I was thinking, okay, I'm not going to tell her. I'm not going to tell her, even though I wanted to tell her. I felt like part of it was a way for me to stand up for myself and say, I'm not afraid of you. You can't control me. I filed I filed a divorce to divorce you, and I went to the courthouse today. Here's the paperwork. Sign it. And it was hard for me to keep myself calm and in control and just be like, okay, I've been the bigger person this whole time. um, I'm not going to lose it now. I mean, she would do terrible things. She'd rip the covers off of me in the middle of the night, yelling at me. She would do this stuff when she knew I had to get up early for work. There are days at work I would see things that weren't there. Again, it turned out she was poisoning me with the tea. Um, she kept telling me she was reading all this stuff online on how to control men and making them just sick enough and putting menstrual cycle blood and all sorts of stuff in their food, along with black magic, would put them completely under your control so they will continue to serve you and get you what you want so you don't have to work. She actually told me this. And then would say, "But you're really lucky that I'm not the type of woman who would do that. Any other woman would do that, but I wouldn't. So you're really lucky." It's like, what the fuck is that? What is that? You know? So the woman who did the paperwork, she remembered me from before when I filed for the marriage license. And she was surprised to see me. Now, I had been there a few times for other lawsuits, so people at the courthouse knew me. And fortunately, I was well liked. And I was really happy to see how many people who knew me and knew my ex-wife would immediately say, whatever the problem was, it was her. I got that a lot. And I was like, wow, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what if it's past trauma, but that made me feel really good that they were able to see me based on my actions and how I treat people, and then her actions and how she treats people, and immediately say, I could tell the problem was her. I mean, at the beginning, people who are saying, well, Justin, it takes two, all changed their position to, oh, it's her. It's her. And I'm really glad about that. I wish it was there with everyone else. I lost a lot of friends because she smeared me all over Facebook, lied about me to people, but anyway, that happened at the courthouse. As a matter of fact, there were lawsuits I was handling for her. One of them was really big, and that attorney was so shocked. He's like, "Wait a second," and he started going through notes and everything with me. He's like, "This is Justin, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Your wife's name so and so?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Didn't you do this and this and this for her?" I was like, "Yep." He's like, "Then wait, didn't you do this and this as well?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Aren't you the one who shared with me that you like to this and this and this and like the movie nights and this and that and take them out and surprise them and do?" I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "Wow." He goes, "Oh, okay." He says, "Well, I can't really have an opinion on it." But he made it clear, because he was handling her lawsuit. And he spoke to me a lot for hours. We would discuss things that had to do with law, and he seemed to like me enough. And he would share with me different tactics he was taking and why in our case. It was cool, you know. But I was really happy to see that, when I told him remove me from the case because we're getting a divorce, I told him what happened. And it's like he wanted to say, "I know it's not you. I could tell it wasn't you." But he was so nice about it as far as the way he said, "Didn't you do this for her and this and all these?" He just named all these things. It's like, and then when this happened before, didn't you step in and do this? And I was like, "Yeah, I did." He remembered a lot of stuff about me, probably because all those issues with her were also legal issues that I handled, for her. But anyway, at the courthouse, when I was filing the paperwork, um, the woman was very pleasant, and on my way out, had some fun talking to the security guards real quick. They're not security guards; they're actual sheriffs. They're, God bless them, very nice people, very nice people. Um, I got home, and she comes to the door. I hear the garage door open, and the anxiety was there. Whenever she would get home and I could hear her car pull up, the car that I bought her, by the way, pull up, my anxiety would go high. I didn't completely pay off that car actually. I paid about 8 grand off of it, a Kia Sorento. Then I told her she had to get a job, and she needed to start taking over payments. And that did not go over well. But it's like, you're an adult, you're gonna start doing adult things and start taking care of yourself like an adult. But that car pulled up, and she comes in the house, absolutely nothing wrong, great day. Just starts yelling at me about nothing. I think she was yelling at me because I cleaned the dishes, and since I cleaned the dishes, it meant that I wasn't doing the dishes. Yeah, the arguments narcissists will come up with a reason why they're somehow a victim is really fascinating. The logic that they attempt to use, very flawed. So, she is mad at me because I cleaned the dishes, so that means I didn't clean the dishes. She always told me she was very intimidated by me, and she said, especially when it comes to maintaining the house, because I'm very good at maintaining a home. It takes very little effort and very little time because I have trained myself and I've learned techniques, you know, to clean things properly and quickly with quality being there. She'd be the type of person who'd be like, I don't want to. And she'd be pushing the mop back and forth forever and it'd be partially cleaned. Versus me, someone who uses the technique to sweep quickly and then mop very well and then use a second type of mop very, very well and put elbow grease into it, you know. So she always told me she was intimidated by that because it was clear I did not need her because I could get home and clean everything. I stayed on top of the litter boxes. We had about 16 or 17 cats, I think, at that time. I had automatic kitty litter box. Like I really, yeah. I had to buy all sorts of stuff to do her chores for her because she always complained about chores, always. And I knew she didn't do any chores, but um, anyway. Total liars, man. Narcissists and covert, constant lying, constant state of lying. So she's yelling at me, and I said, you know what? Fine, that's fine because I filed for divorce today, and by October something, you won't have to worry about it anymore. She lit up. She lit up, screaming at the top of her lungs. That's her saying that I was like trying to do some mind control over her, and she started spilling all the beans to all the stuff she was doing to me. Everything that she'd been telling me about that she's seen these women doing to their men. Um, all this black witchcraft and everything, which is funny because she starts accusing me of the saying that I talked about it all the time, blah 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 blah. And I'm a man of complete logic and science. I'm a former exorcist, and they didn't like me because I kept coming up with logical explanations. So here she is, someone involved in that time black witchcraft and mysticism, telling her extremely 100% logical husband, which is spec scan actually proved, 100% logic, data only, that he's the one who was doing that stuff and blah blah blah. I mean, it was funny because I just don't believe in that shit. I don't believe in it. So she did not realize that she was admitting everything. Then she told me to get up and go to my study. Now the study was my private space that she made sure was never private. She'd always bust in the door. She'd always drive me nuts, and then she'd act like she was just being playful. And I remember she had said that in the past as far as how that's how she would harass someone is do something really terrible to them but have a smile and laugh and just say she was joking. It's like, okay, well that's what a child does, not an adult. People would catch on right away. So she always bothered me. She wanted to make sure I had no space, no room um to just have to myself to sit down and study. It was just constant with her, constant. So when I told her that, and she told me to go to my study, and she's going to point out all the books on witchcraft I have, which was hilarious. She goes in there and starts pointing. Oh, what's that? Huh? Huh? There's one right there. And what's that? Huh? And she was pointing to one of them was a book on I think the first one she pointed at was like the history, some type of American history that had to do with Lincoln, and then she pointed at the other one that was on like bodybuilding and health, and then she pointed at another one that was it was right next to the Joy cookbook. It was the Mediterranean cookbook, and then she pointed at a fourth one, I believe, that was right next to it that was just another type of cookbook, acting like she really caught me. There was no escape. Just make it. She was so desperate. She was just screaming, pointing at random things, so desperate to try and act like she caught me on something, trying to create her own reality. You know, I was laughing. I was like, get out of my study. Get out, get out. She's like, what are you going to do, huh? What are you going to do? Trying to act like she's going to hit me. And then she goes, points her face at the window. And when she did this, I realized all the windows were open. We never have the windows open in the house. And she screams, ah, oh my God, what are you doing? And then she starts going like this, ah, 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 and falsely falls out the door. Later on, I remembered how she always talked about the scene in Fight Club and how she would have no problem doing that at all if she could get something out of it. That she's like, I don't care. I don't feel embarrassment or shame. I would do it if it means blah, 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 blah. Just absolutely crazy. Again, she didn't act this crazy before we got married. When we got married and we walked out of the courthouse, she looked at me and said, "Well, you're stuck with me now, and there's no escape. I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want, and you're stuck with me. I can stop with the act." And her whole voice changed. The way she walked was this creepy wobble, but the persona that she gave off for years was still there when company was over. Sometimes it would leave when she become aggressive, or when we would go to a restaurant or something. when we go somewhere and I would give the restaurant, the waitress a few $100 tip because she needed aid or a crib for her baby that was coming. Um, my ex-wife would always have an act and come up with an excuse on, yeah, well, he's really greedy, but I told him, that he needs to help people out. So that's why I told him to do that. She would do things like that. So at this point, um, she says, I'm calling the police. I got on my phone and I immediately called someone. I think it was my sister. I think it was my sister Jay. And I said, she did exactly what you said she was going to do. She tried to attack me. I wouldn't. And she falsely fell backwards, calling the cops, saying that I hit her. She said, go outside right now. Then I called a therapist. And I said, she did exactly what you all said she was going to do. He says, go outside, wait for the cops to come. I was like, that's right. That's what I'll do. So I go outside and wait for the cops to arrive. And at this point, I don't even realize or remember that I had two surveillance cameras up that were both really, really good. Really good systems. Um, one of them was ultra high def 4K with ultra, like a high def sound, which you don't think is really a thing. It is. It's really cool. So, anyway, keep that in mind. What happened was the cops show up, and at this point, I had forgotten that she had a record for lying to the police. And I think it was more than one occasion. So the police show up, they ask me what happened, and I just told them I was honest. I'm like, been having problems with her for years, been telling her you can see a therapist. I've spoken to many therapists. They said divorce her. Do not tell her, otherwise she's going to attack you. Told them I just got off the phone with one of them, and I said, let them know. I'm like, well, she just did what you said she was planning. I had so many people tell me she was planning on that she was kept telling me these stories about this stuff because it's what she was looking to do to me. And what happened with this was the cops, even though those cops and I just definitely don't get along because I've reported them multiple times for their bad behaviors, they looked at me and they would look at her and they listened to that story and the story that she told them. I gotta let you go and tell you later. What a bummer. But yeah, I guess this is part two. I'm sorry I've taken so long to get through this.